David Philip Vetter was born on September 21, 1971, and immediately placed into a sterile plastic chamber at birth to protect him from infection due to severe combined immunodeficiency, a condition that left his immune system nearly non-existent. His parents, Carol Ann and David Joseph Vetter Jr., had lost their first son to the same disease, and knowing their next male child had a 50% chance of inheriting SCID, they chose to continue the pregnancy in hopes of a different outcome. The chamber, inflated by constant air compressors, became David's world, with thick gloves built into its walls allowing caregivers to touch him only indirectly, the loud machinery making spoken communication difficult. Shortly after birth, a Catholic priest baptized David inside the bubble using sterilized holy water, a ritual performed with careful coordination to maintain sterility while honoring the family's faith. Everything entering David's environment, food, water, clothes, diapers, was sterilized using ethylene oxide gas for 4 hours at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, then aerated for days before transfer. The medical team, led by Dr. John Montgomery, committed to giving David as normal a life as possible, providing books, toys, and eventually a television set inside the sterile environment. David's older sister Katherine visited regularly, forming a close bond with him despite the physical barrier, sharing stories and laughter through the plastic walls. Around age 4, David discovered he could puncture the bubble with a butterfly needle left in the chamber, prompting the medical team to explain germs and the danger of infection. From that moment, David understood the stakes, learning that even invisible particles could end his life, a realization that shaped his awareness of the outside world. He watched television with fascination, observing children playing outdoors, riding bikes, and touching one another, experiences he could only witness, never join. By 1974, 3 years after his birth, doctors built a second sterile chamber in the Vetter family home in Conroe, Texas, allowing David to spend weeks at home. A transportable chamber enabled David to travel between hospital and home, maintained under strict, sterile conditions, expanding his environment beyond the hospital walls. At home, David interacted more with Katherine and occasional friends who visited and played games with him through the barrier of the bubble. One friend arranged a private screening of Return of the Jedi at a local theater, bringing David in his transport chamber so he could experience a movie outside the hospital. As he grew, David became increasingly aware of the world beyond his isolation, expressing curiosity about touching grass, feeling wind, and hugging his family. In 1977, NASA engineers collaborated with medical experts to design a special suit that would allow David to leave the bubble and move freely in the outside world. The suit connected to his bubble via a 2.5-meter cloth tube, filtering air and maintaining sterility, enabling him to step outside without direct exposure to pathogens. David was initially reluctant to wear the suit, finding it heavy and strange, but over time, he grew more comfortable with the idea of venturing beyond the bubble. He used the suit only 6 times, each outing a carefully monitored event, with medical staff nearby to ensure no breach of sterility occurred. Despite growing more confident, David outgrew the original suit, and though NASA provided a replacement, he never wore it, preferring the familiarity of his bubble. The family's home in Dovin, Texas became a central part of David's life, where he spent increasing amounts of time within the sterile enclosure. David received formal education through tutors who worked with him inside the chamber, progressing through grade levels with the help of books and recorded lessons. He developed a love for science fiction and space, drawn to stories of exploration in distant worlds, perhaps seeing parallels in his own constrained existence. The medical team monitored his health closely, conducting regular blood tests and physical assessments through the gloves built into the chamber walls. No cure for SCID existed at the time, and bone marrow transplants were the only potential treatment, but a matched donor had not yet been found. By 1981, with no donor match identified and David's health remaining fragile, the family and doctors considered a transplant from his sister Katherine. Katherine was a partial match, making her a haploidentical donor, a risky option that required careful preparation and carried a high chance of complications. The transplant procedure involved extracting Katherine's bone marrow and infusing it into David, hoping his body would accept the cells and begin producing immune function. David's body initially tolerated the transplant, showing signs of engraftment, and for a time, there was hope that he might finally develop immunity. But within months, David became ill with infectious mononucleosis, a disease caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, which had lain dormant in Katherine's donated marrow. The virus had not been detectable in pre-transplant screening, as testing for latent Epstein-Barr was not yet routine in donor evaluations. The infection triggered a cascade of complications, overwhelming David's already compromised system despite aggressive medical intervention. He developed Burkitt's lymphoma, a fast-growing cancer linked to Epstein-Barr, which took hold in his body as his immune system failed to respond. David died on February 22, 1984, at the age of 12, after 12 years lived entirely in isolation, protected from germs, but ultimately lost to a hidden virus. An autopsy confirmed that the Epstein-Barr virus in Katherine's marrow had caused the cancer, a tragic outcome from a well-intentioned but imperfect medical effort. The case highlighted the limitations of transplant medicine at the time, especially the inability to screen for latent viruses in donors. Approximately $1.3 million had been spent on David's care, funding research, isolation systems, and medical monitoring without achieving a cure. David's story captured public attention, leading to the 1976 TV movie The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, starring John Travolta, inspired by his life. In 1986, Paul Simon released The Boy in the Bubble, a song referencing David's isolation and the fragility of modern life. Later portrayals, like Seinfeld's 1992 episode The Bubble Boy and the 2001 film Bubble Boy, brought awareness but also criticism for comedic treatment of his condition. David's parents divorced after his death, each moving on with their lives in different directions, carrying the weight of their loss. His father later became mayor of Shenandoah, Texas, while his mother married Kent Demeret, a journalist who had written about David. Mary Murphy, David's psychologist, wrote a book about his life, initially blocked by the family and Baylor College of Medicine from publication. The book, Bursting the Bubble, was finally published in 2019, offering a deeper look into David's emotional and psychological experience. David Elementary School in the Woodlands, Texas, opened in 1990, named in his honor, serving as a lasting local tribute. Newborn screening for SCID now exists in many countries, using TREC testing to detect low T-cell levels before infections occur. As of 2022, all newborns in the US and Australia are screened for SCID, leading to earlier diagnosis and improved survival rates. Today, early transplants in the first 3 months of life have a success rate approaching 90%, a stark contrast to David's era. Gene therapy has emerged as a treatment for ADA, SCID, and X-linked SCID, with lentiviral vectors showing success in recent clinical trials. In 2019, 8 children with X-SCID were treated successfully using modified HIV-based vectors, marking a turning point in genetic medicine. 50 children with ADA SCID treated in 2021 saw immune reconstitution in 48, demonstrating the potential of gene therapy to cure SCID. Unlike David's time, when transplants relied on imperfect matches and undetected viruses, today's methods prioritize safety and precision. The legacy of David Vetter has influenced medical ethics and the approach to patient isolation, highlighting the challenges of long-term sterile containment. He lived 12 years in a sterile environment, protected from infection, but ultimately succumbed to a virus undetectable at the time of his transplant. His life spurred advances in immunology, transplant protocols, and public awareness, shaping how medicine approaches rare genetic disorders. His life remains a human story, of parental dedication, medical intervention, and the psychological impact of prolonged isolation.